Hey, Previews World, Troy Allen here, and I'm sitting across from the highly regarded Karen
By
Berger.
some, yes.
The highly regarded Karen Berger, of course. She is the editor of Berger Books. You guys have been going for, I want to say, about a year now?
We launched our first titles February 2018.
Okay.
So it depends on where you want to start your year from.
All right.
I signed my deal with Dark Horse a year ago in February 2017, but have been and started acquiring titles right away.
Okay.
First started publishing our books not even 6 months ago now. So it seems much longer.
Right, yeah.
Because the startup time, obviously. Yes.
Well, I heard about it at New York Comic Con last year, so like, yeah.
Right, yes.
So that sounds about right.
It does sound about right, yeah.
So let me ask you this, like, okay, Berger Books, they do Matahari, they did Incognito.
Correct.
They also did Hungry Ghosts with Anthony Bourdain. What is the umbrella here, besides just your name, of course, right? But what is the mission statement? Like, what is the goal of Berger Books? Because all these books are different in their own right, and like they're very individualistic. And I know creator-owned is part of that, but what is what is the goal of Berger Books?
Well, people ask me what's the goal, what's the end game, what am I trying to say with the titles that I'm publishing. I mean, my goal, or not my goal, but my desire as an editor, back from my early days at DC Comics, was to edit comics that I wanted to read myself, which sounds very selfish, but as a woman and as someone who was not a comics fan growing up, I sort of fell into the business and was really taken by it in an extremely good way. But I was I was not attracted to superhero comics, and I was looking for something. I wanted to work with writers and artists on stories that I ultimately wanted to read myself, and I was always a big fan of genre fiction, and so as an editor, I'm looking to work with inventive storytellers, writers with distinct voices, something new to say, something that where I learned something different about a part of the world I never knew about. Be it historically or in the future, dark psychological underpinnings of people's lives. I mean, it's not really one thing. It's really, I just love great stories. And it's not really a great mission, but the mission, if it has to be a mission, is that I've always wanted to do comics that could appeal to anybody, that anybody could pick up and read, and you didn't have to be a comic book fan in order to get it. And so that's, I guess, ultimately,
telling great stories,
Yeah,
that's a good mission.
I think so.
So you edit everything at Berger Books?
I edit everything at Berger Books,
and like, what is that like?
Well, essentially, Berger Books is me and my husband, Richard Bruning, who's the art director and graphic designer. Richard and I met at DC Comics. We were in Office Romance That Worked many years ago. Richard is a well-known graphic designer in the field, designed the Vertigo logo, who designed the San Diego Comic-Con logo, as well as tons of logos and publication design he worked on. Dark Knight and Watchmen, he's creative director at DC for 15 years. So it's great being married to a graphic designer when you want to when you're an editor and you're kind of doing your own line together. So it's just us. I mean, we're I'm a freelance editor with a little shingle at Dark Horse, and Mike Richardson has been wonderful to me, as well as the other people at Dark Horse. And but I work from home. We're empty nesters, and we each have taken over our son's bedrooms, and
is that where the office is now?
Those are exactly. So it's good. I'm really enjoying being in the trenches again as an editor. With Vertigo, the line got so big that I was really just editor-in-chiefing it for most of the time as time went on, and involved in development in all the titles. But was not hands-on editing as much as I did early on in my career. After I left DC and took a few years off from comics, I really missed it. I wanted to come back, but I wanted to get my hands dirty again. I didn't want to do a whole big line. I just wanted to have a nice, small line that I could really call my own.
Right, yeah.
And set it up at a place, like Dark Horse, whose work I respect enormously, and Dark Horse is a great home for me in terms of its, commitment to creator-owned titles and progressive sensibility. Dark Horse produces beautiful hardcovers and collections, and to me, it's the book that really matters at the end of the day, and the periodical is sort of one way to get there. So yes, I'm very, very happy to be at Dark Horse.
So okay, let's talk about what's on the horizon, right? So like Berger Books has been around for like a couple of months now, we'll say, and I know that Seeds is coming out with Ann Nesenti.
Correct.
And
David
David
Aha.
Cannot forget that.
Cannot forget the great David Aha.
But what else is on the horizon? What are we looking at moving forward? What can people pre-order?
Right.
Thinking about pre-order.
She Could Fly just came out last week,
right, yeah.
which is a new series by writer Christopher Cantwell and artist Martin Morazzo. Christopher is the co-creator of the great AMC show *Halt and Catch Fire*. He's a huge comics fan, and this is his first comics work. He took to it like he was writing comics his whole life. I mean, it's a wonderful series about a disturbed teenage girl who becomes obsessed with this mysterious flying woman who's soaring around the skies of Chicago. She explodes one day, and Luna, who's our star, spirals downward even more into her weird depression, and makes it her goal to search for the identity of who this flying woman was, and what her mission was. In the meantime, there are other people who are also after this flying woman: the government, the Chinese, a wacky former physicist. It's a really beautifully written, beautifully paced story. Martin Morazzo, who's drawing Ice Cream Man by Image now, which is a really great title, is the artist, and he and Christopher blend together beautifully. Great color by Miroslav Merver. And so that's out now, doing a series called Olivia Twist, which is by novelist Darren Strauss and a short fiction writer Adam Dalva, and drawn by Emma Vicelli, who's a British artist. She's done work on the Vampire Academy comics. She's done some New Adventures of Supergirl. She has a Breaks, which is a web series that she co-creates with a writer. And Olivia Twist is sort of as it sounds. It's a version.
On Oliver Twist, right?
Yeah, it's the classic character as a 18-year-old teenage orphan girl in a near future London, and she ages out of her orphanage, and she joins the Esters, which is a girl gang of thieves, and they try to help people in internment camps, and so there's a great sort of there's a lot of echoes, obviously, of the original Oliver Twist, but it also sort of takes the story in a different direction. It's a really great series. I'm very proud of it, and that's coming out in October. And I'm also doing a series with Nnedi Okorafor, wonderful science fiction writer.
She's doing a lot right now.
She's done a lot. She's really doing a lot. I know they just announced the Shuri.
Yeah.
That's right. Shuri. Saying She-Ra, sorry. The Shuri series. Sorry, Nnedi.
She's prolific. She might do She-Ra too.
She might, yeah. And Tana Ford, who a wonderful artist who is best known for doing a run on the Marvel character Silk, and that's a story about a world, an Earth where aliens have successfully integrated with our society, and so I could be sitting here and you could be an alien
Right.
from another planet, and could be having a conversation, and that's just kind of the way that it goes. And this story follows this pregnant Nigerian American doctor who has been abroad in Africa for a number of years. She comes back through LaGuardia Interstellar and Interplanetary Airport. LaGuardia is the only airport where you can travel, get to the United States from other planets. And it's still under construction, like LaGuardia Airport is always under construction. And she basically is here to kind of make it in a new world, like other immigrants and like other aliens. And this series was pitched to me as a contract with God, but told through alien and immigrant characters.
Interesting.
So it was a great pitch, and Nettie's a terrific writer, and Tana's doing incredible work. A great colorist on it, Jimmy Devlin, who I worked with in Search and Exit Image, and that will be out in October. So those are the titles from my fall lineup. And the last book that we announced just the other day is Invisible Kingdom with G. Willow Wilson and Christian Ward. I worked with Willow on her first comics work at Vertigo on Air, one of my favorite series ever, and Cairo, and thrilled to be working with her again on a new creator-owned series with Christian. And Invisible Kingdom is it's a science fiction, space opera, multi-part epic story that takes place in a far-flung galaxy in a small solar system. And it's about two women who sort of join forces, an unlikely pair. One woman who's a freighter pilot working for an Amazon-like type corporation called Lux, Lux, who basically controls all of the commerce and retail in this solar system. And she winds up teaming up with a young religious acolyte, sort of a nun, who is a follower of the world's most dominant religion. And the two of them uncover a conspiracy, each on their own, that connects these two forces. And it's sort of their job to whether do they unveil it, do they try to defeat this arch conspiracy, do they have other ideas in mind? So it's a wonderful humanistic story with some great action in it, great science fiction elements, great different types of aliens and planets and
really
life
running
forms.
the gamut here.
Yeah, really beautiful, and it's called The Invisible Kingdom. So thematically, it's a lot to do with religion and belief, and when you believe in something and then it fails you, then what are you left with? And that's kind of almost like the concept behind this series. Very excited about that. That's coming out in March, and then all the Berger books will be out in collections. Because again, as I said before, it's all about the collection. We have Hungry Ghosts collection, Anthony Bourdain's Hungry Ghosts, which will be very, very sadly his last published work ever.
Wow.
He had signed off on the design just a few days before he passed away.
Oh, wow.
And the hardcover is a beautiful collection. Not only does it obviously collect the miniseries, but it has 5 original recipes that he wrote specifically for this comic based on dishes from the story, as well as a ghost guide behind all the Japanese demons and ghosts, with beautiful illustrations by Leo Manco. So there's really great extras in this as well. And that will be out October 2nd. And also have a great collection, Incognito Renaissance, and Matahari, and The Alcoholic hardcover, 10th anniversary edition, which I published at Vertigo. Jonathan Ames and Dean Haspel, doing a beautiful new edition that's out in September. I also just published this amazing, mega oversized edition of the originals, the Essential Edition by Dave Gibbons, which is gorgeous and a great deal at $29.99. It's a beautiful book, giant-sized book with great, 32 pages of extra behind-the-scenes shit from the mind of Dave Gibbons. So it's really great.
Excellent.
Yes.
I mean, Berger Books, there seems to be a lot of material, and you're
I'm
running
doing
the
a lot
gamut.
more than I thought I was going to, but it's hard to turn down all these great pitches.
No, that's excellent.
I'm having a great time.
Excellent. Karen,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure, Troy.
I hope San Diego's treating you well.
So far, so good.
Good. And of course, you can get Berger Books at your local comic shop. Be sure to pre-order and look forward to all these titles that are not available now at your local comic shop as well.
Hey Previews World! Did you enjoy this video? Then let's be friends! Follow Previews World by clicking that subscribe button so you don't miss any new content.